The basic theme is how crimes and criminals are treated in a media saturated society. How many of you have watched the movie? Very nice. Do you remember the scene where Woody Harrelson first sets his sights upon Juliette Lewis? He brings, yeah, there's a very strange scene. He's literally carrying some dead meat with the blood is still pouring all over the place. Yeah, but how is the scene treated? We are told that this girl who is barely out of her teens, Juliette Lewis, she is sexually abused by her father frequently. Yeah, her mother is indifferent to it, and there is a brother, a very boorish younger brother, who is again who is totally into materialistic things of life. All he is interested in is how much pocket money he can get out of his parents. Father dominates the household, rules everyone with an iron hand, and it's a very dysfunctional, miserable household. And in walks Woody Harrelson, who is as far removed from a knight in shining armor as could be. He is nothing like that. But for Juliette Lewis' character, he is. Okay, because her family life is so disturbed that this deranged man could well be her savior. That's the idea. So we live in a media saturated society where we are conditioned that love at first sight is possible, where women feel that a man just walks in and she can ride away into the moonlight with him, and then suddenly the scene turns into something else. Do you remember what happens? It turns into Oliver Stone gives it a touch of a television soap opera and a sitcom. Why does he do that? We live in a media saturated society. You fall in love and suddenly everything looks like as if you're part of television. And how much do they enjoy being on camera? Remember, later on there is even a character superbly played by Robert Downey Jr. Okay, the television anchor. So, a word about Oliver Stone. He comes on the heels of the new Hollywood cinema. He has learned his craft from all those people that we have been talking about so far. Martin Scorsese, he is a successor to them, a very natural successor to Martin Scorsese, to Brian De Palma, to Francis Coppola, Woody Allen. And if you watch him, you can see the influences. All the influences are all there. He also wrote the screenplay for Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma. He actually served as a soldier in the Vietnam War, and therefore his Vietnam trilogy, Platoon, Born on the 4th of July with Tom Cruise, and Heaven and Earth. He has a strong political ideologies. If you watch his list of movies, it's absolutely phenomenal, astounding the way he treats politics. We are talking about a man who has made JFK, who has made Nixon, and also George W. Bush. Okay, so a man who is strongly given to understanding the political happenings in the United States. Some of his more entertaining movies, Wall Street, which won Michael Douglas his Oscar. Any Given Sunday is a wonderful drama starring Al Pacino and Cameron Diaz. Even one of his earlier films, Salvador, starring James Woods as a reporter, a very young James Woods. So, it takes place in South America. Yeah. It's a brilliant movie if you watch it. One of his earlier attempts at direction, but so wonderfully done. Do you know the actor who played W? Josh Brolin. Okay. And how closely he resembles. Now, two major differences between Pulp Fiction and Natural Born Killer. Natural Born Killers, although it is saturated with violence, it's anti-violence. Whereas Pulp Fiction tells us violence is cool. Pulp Fiction, of course, a typical Tarantino movie, so lot of hip music, rock and surf kind of music, whereas Natural Born Killers has a more, the music of that movie has a more dark tones to it. While Tarantino experiments with the narrative in Pulp Fiction, Oliver Stone is more interested in editing in Natural Born Killers. So, he does not experiment as much with the narrative, he does not disturb that, but editing wise suddenly you find a jump cut at some place, split screen some place else, the screen suddenly turning black and white from color and from color to black and white, the bat of an eyelid. Okay. So, a lot of experimentation with editing. Tarantino takes in the sense that if you watch, I was particularly interested in Reservoir Dogs. Now, if you look at the dogs, those guys sitting around the table, and the kind of conversation they indulge in, it's extremely hyper masculine, and the kind of violence, the ear splicing scene, it's a total lift from cinema of Sam Peckinpah, where violence is supposed to be extremely cool and very matter of fact. And do you know, there were women when the movie was first premiered, women in the audience fainted when they first watched the movie, but there was one woman who really enjoyed it, and that woman was Madonna. She said, I like this kind of cinema, okay, and I think violence is cool. Yeah. And Tarantino, I mean, no prizes for guessing, he was extremely flattered. I mean, Madonna complimenting you on your very first directorial effort. So, again, we were talking about Frederick Jameson and idea of schizophrenia in postmodernist society. So, this is something that you find in Natural Born Killers also. See, all the kind of expressionistic scenes that you find, the distorted images, and Natural Born Killers abounds in these images, distorted images, saturated colors. That is not the way it really is. I mean, I will ask you to go back to your Taxi Driver, where New York is noxious, poisonous green gases emanating from all over the place. It is almost like Travis Bickle is riding through Hades. The New York is hell. So, that is what we find in Natural Born Killers also, psychic fragmentation, distorted images. There is a scene where they are poisoned, where the girl is poisoned and the man is so drug induced, he is unable to look for the right medicine for her, and the entire screen goes green. You remember, for no reason at all, they kill off a very innocent Indian, a Native American, okay, and then the girl is bitten by a deadly cobra, and then they go out hunting for the medicine for her. So, this is what Natural Born Killers is all about. If you talk about how postmodernist it is, the movie is extremely rich in pastiche. There is a scene where they have kidnapped a girl from a small town, and she is tied up in the same room which this couple lives in, and while the girl is being tortured, meaningless torture, the couple is watching Scarface. It is very self-referential. Scarface, which was known for its hyper-violence on screen, and more importantly, it is written by Oliver Stone himself. Oliver Stone commenting on his own work that, look, we live in a society which is so full of violence. So, you have lots of experimentation with editing techniques. So, we get film footage, we get television style of editing. Sometimes the characters speak like cartoons. Mix of music is a mix of music too is a pastiche a mix of contemporary rock as well as very traditional romantic kind of music. And why does he do that? Again, we go back to our new Hollywood filmmakers. After all, that has been his training ground. At no stage of the movie, Oliver Stone makes any attempt to get you involved, at least emotionally, with what's happening on screen. He wants you to keep your distance, and therefore all these fragmented editing techniques. Okay, again, you are watching a movie about violence. That message comes across. He is not inviting you to get emotionally involved with the audience, and therefore that that kind of editing technique. Okay, when you don't want to involve the audience, you don't call attention to the narrative and to the editing pattern. Okay, that means you almost feel like one, but suddenly when the screen goes black and white from color and the other way around, you know, oh, so you know your attention is broken off. When you are watching a movie where something very serious like a father abusing his daughter on screen, and suddenly the entire scene turns into a television sitcom, you know that you are watching something, and the director is asking you to think about it. Okay, don't just get involved in the narrative flow of the movie. That's what he's saying.
Non-linear narrative device is first in the same purpose. Tarantino actually commented on Pulp Fiction in the same way as well.
Yeah.
Why he actually cuts so that he can ensure that people are involved. They'll be thinking and.
Yeah, that's what involved in the sense you are intellectually involved. We don't want such films. Do not invite people to get emotionally involved. Emotional involvement was a feature of the classic Hollywood kind of cinema. Even for us, it's more like, you know, when we watch a movie which is very traditionally structured, okay, or a story which is very classically told, then the director is Jab Tak Hai Jaan. Okay, a movie like this invites you to be emotionally involved, because that's the kind of director Yash Chopra is. He wants it. So therefore, you know, there will always be a difference between this set of directors and the other set of directors. More successful directors would always want to capitalize on your emotional connect. Okay, whereas the other set of directors do not want you to get so emotionally connected with the product, because they want you to think about, yeah, what is happening on screen. A product of new Hollywood cinema, Oliver Stone's movies are basically extremely anti-authoritarian, and this is a trait you find in Natural Born Killers as well. So all those people who are supposed to uphold our society, parents, sheriffs, cops, media reporters, they are generally portrayed as corrupt, violent, exploitative. Did you find that? Yes. So there is a statement in the movie which fits the central idea of the film very well. In contemporary America, reality exists only in the context of media images. You remember Simulacra and Simulacrum, Baudrillard. The Gulf War did not take place. So whatever you watch on media, that's the only truth. Okay, so and that's the idea in Wag the Dog as well. There is no war, but a producer has shot a war. Okay, therefore there is a war, and you are supposed to accept it because I am showing it to you. Okay, and it's there. So postmodernist cinema, and there is an entire list of cinema which is focused on relationship between films and other media, films and television, films about films. So general characteristics of this kind of self-referential, self-conscious cinema is that Basically, these films tend to offer a critique of the commodification of American culture. They map the decline in the ability of Americans to distinguish between fiction and reality. It's very important. And if you look at our society, what's happening around us, I mean, look at all these reality shows. You know, this is a comparatively a new phenomenon for us. But don't you feel that increasingly we as a society, we are failing to distinguish between reality and fiction as seen through media images. The bottom line is that everything has been reduced to entertainment, and there is no fixed, ordered and central reality. That is the basic tenet of postmodernist literature. So watch these two movies again, Natural Born Killers, Pulp Fiction, and also Wag the Dog, and you will understand. Some other examples, Sidney Lumet's Network, classic movie, and there is a classic line in the movie, there is no America, there is no democracy. What do we have? IBM, Union Carbide, Dow and DuPont. It's a wonderful critique of American capitalism and media, from the director of 12 Angry Men and Dog Day Afternoon. More example where self-conscious cinema tells us that media is taking dangerous proportions. David Cronenberg, the Canadian filmmaker's Videodrome, and Elia Kazan's A Face in the Crowd. Media is addictive as well as corrupt. So Robert Redford's Quiz Show, Requiem for a Dream. All these movies I am very sure are familiar to you. You just have to refresh and apply the theory here. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, directed by George Clooney. And then watch Scorsese's very honorable flop, King of Comedy, which almost wiped him off. After New York, he came up with King of Comedy, again with De Niro. In between there was another flop, but at least an Oscar-worthy flop, Raging Bull. Raging Bull, let me tell you, was a big flop, commercially flop, when it was first released. After these flops, what did he make? 3 flops in a row. King of Comedy, Raging Bull, New York. Out of which Raging Bull at least was a critical success. Exactly, Last Temptation of Christ, which was commercially successful. And Martin Scorsese, if you read his biographies and autobiography, there is a book called Scorsese on Scorsese. Wonderfully written book, where he tells you that people used to laugh in his face after these 3 movies. But then King of Comedy is a very good critique of media. Nicole Kidman's To Die For, we have already referred to. And before we wind up today's class, I want to talk to you about our own attempts at postmodernist cinema, which is Anurag Kashyap's Dev D. And if you look at the Still Here, do you find echoes of Face Off? Why? Tara, tell me why.
The eye is the same.
And whose faces are joined here and blurring of identities?
Abediyal and
Devdas and
Paro. Devdas and Paro. Okay, but very psychedelic now. Okay, very counter. So this is not your linear traditional Devdas, but is very postmodernist and very countercultural Devdas, because that's the kind of director Anurag Kashyap is. So when he was asked that why Devdas, okay, I am quoting him from one of his interviews, he said that Devdas is very applicable in India because ours is a country known for self-pity, and that's the kind of hero Devdas is. Who is a hero? I mean, he is not your eternal loser. He is trying to find himself, so it's coming of age movie. And what are you, so it's a remake of old Devdas plus sex, drugs and rock and roll, and all these are characteristics of the counterculture cinema. So this is another theorist you should look at, Gerard Genet, who proposes the term metatextuality, or the critical relation between one text and another, whether the commented text is explicitly cited or only silently evoked, and you will have plenty of references of this in Devdi. The commented text is explicitly cited or only silently evoked. See, if you watch Devdi, it's not a homage to Bimal Roy's Devdas starring the great Dilip Kumar, or Sanjay Bhansali's Devdas starring the greater Shah Rukh Khan. Okay, I can see a lot of sniggers here, but okay, that's all right. But you see, so it's not a homage, it's actually a hostile reaction towards some of the earlier adaptations. Ranjit, any comments here? You have a hostile reaction towards what I just said?
No, the music also in this movie especially.
Yeah, completely subverts the kind of music you would expect in Devdas. I mean, after all, this is not Devdas Mukherjee, but he is Devendra Dhillon, and therefore he is Devdi. Okay, so there is the text is silently evoked. Now Lenny, as played by Kalki, she is travelling in a coach and watches a video of Bhansali's Devdas. She watches a scene where Paro and Chandramukhi are dancing together from Sanjay Leela Bhansali's Devdas. So the text is silently evoked. Okay, and in the original novel, the two women cross paths just once. They don't dance together, but they happen to cross paths. While this one is leaving the town, the other is entering the town, which is portrayed in Bimal Roy's version, starring Vijayantimala and Suchitra Sen. There is a scene where in Devdi, Anurag Kashyap's Devdi, the two women do come across face to face. They are in the Chandigarh bound train. They are sitting across each other, and they acknowledge each other. Yeah, so it's a very metatextual kind of a scene, and very postmodernist in its narrative. There are three parts to it, and you get those cards reading, this is Dev, this is Paro, and this is Chanda. Remember the narrative. If you have missed on that, please do watch the movie again. Okay, and there is another very interesting example, and again the original or Bhansali's version is evoked when Dev is led by Chunilal to a bar. He passes a poster of Shah Rukh Khan in Devdas, the 2002 version. Did you notice that? Please do watch it. And while he is entering this underground bar, which is not just a bar but it's also a center for many other addictions, and outside on the wall you see a poster of Shah Rukh Khan in his Devdas avatar. Okay, so Devdi's journey from rustic Punjab to London and back, and also explores the dark, morbid underbelly of Delhi, something which is not usually shown in films. Delhi is usually the clean cut, very sanitized cinema of Yash Chopra. Okay, beautiful girls in beautiful clothes, handsome heroes in their beautiful cars. Okay, so that's the kind of Punjab or Delhi or Punjabi culture that you are treated to in a more mainstream cinema, but not here. Okay, so the film is all about Devdi's journey, literal as well as metaphorical, and see how closely it also satisfies all the conditions given by Joseph Campbell's. Take away from today's class, read up on Frederick Jameson, Linda Hutchins' idea of pastiche, Frederick Jameson's essay on Dog Day Afternoon from Signatures of the Visible, And then Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. Do read it. It's a very interesting take, and it gives you an insight into into the journeys of many of our heroes, well-known, recognizable heroes. Okay, so Devdas, the romantic Devdas of Bhansali and Bimal Roy, and the postmodern Devdas of Anurag Kashyap. So while the earlier versions reflect idealism and but not really social reform, Dev D is more indicative of the globalized Indian youth. So you have Dev D for the postmodernist globalized times. So a reading of Dev D, which I highly recommend, is a pastiche, yes. I mean, even music is a pastiche. Emotional atyachar, contemporary rock, classical Indian ragas, everything is there. Is self-reflexive and highly self-referential in tones, and satisfies Bakhtin's idea of heteroglossic narrative, carnivalesque narrative, offering multiple perspectives on an event. There are certain events which are repeated if you watch it carefully. So you don't have that fixed order narrative, but it's a very disrupted kind of a narrative. Thank you very much.